Do you recognize this picture? It's one of the most iconic images in sports history, capturing the final game-winning shot that Michael Jordan ever took for his legendary Chicago Bulls team. This shot sealed the victory on their sixth championship, cementing their place as the greatest basketball team to ever play in the NBA. But what this image doesn't show is that this iconic moment in MJ's history never could have happened without the actions of one of his teammates that's mostly been overlooked. So in this video, we're going to take some lessons from the backboards to the boardroom and answer the question, how can you bring the best out of the unsung heroes on your team? Let's go. I'm Ahmed Iqbal from 5 Ways to Innovate. On this channel, I share insights and stories from my 20 plus years leading innovation at some of the world's top companies, including Facebook and Deloitte Digital. After winning 5 championships with the Chicago Bulls over the course of a stellar career, the 1998 season was dubbed the Last Dance, as it was widely acknowledged to be Michael Jordan's final season and the Bulls' last chance to win their 6th championship and cement their place in basketball history. The 98 season was fraught with drama, but the Bulls made it to the finals and faced off against their rivals, the Utah Jazz, one last time. After a hard-fought back-and-forth series, they came into Game 6 of the finals needing to win in order to put the series away. As if scripted, it all came down to the last 40 seconds of the game. So John Stockton hits a three-pointer to put the Jazz in the lead by 3, and the Bulls call a timeout to regroup. What came next was, as commentator Bob Costas put it, one of the greatest sequences you'll ever see in any sport. The Bulls inbound, and Jordan quickly drives to the basket, beating his defender to get an easy layup and 2 points. This puts Chicago down by just 1. Utah bring the ball back up the court and get it in the hands of Hall of Famer Karl Malone. This is his chance to put the game out of reach. Instead, Michael Jordan miraculously swats the ball away, and Chicago now have possession. They have 17 seconds to do the impossible and come back to win. Jordan has the ball, and all 20,000 people in the Delta Center that night know exactly what's going to happen next. There is no way MJ is going to pass this ball. Everyone knows that Michael Jordan is going to take the final shot. And of course, we all know the storybook ending occurs when Jordan drives to his right, pulls up in the middle of the lane, and sinks that jump shot that sealed his place in history as the greatest of all time. But wait a second. Let's run that back. How exactly did Jordan manage to pull this play off when every single person in that building that night knew exactly what he was going to do next? You see, while those last 17 seconds are attributed to the greatness of his airness, the real hero here was Dennis Rodman. Let me explain. Jordan has the ball and is pinned at the left elbow. Brian Russell is defending him, so he doesn't have enough space to drive to his left, and the middle of the lane is blocked by not 1 but 2 defenders. He simply has nowhere to go. As he stands there dribbling the ball, the seconds are ticking by. That's when Rodman decides to spring into action. He runs from his position at midcourt across to the opposite end of the floor, drawing the defenders away from the middle. This opens up the lane for Jordan to drive to his right and sink the game winner. It's a blink and you'll miss it kind of moment, but without the quick thinking of Dennis Rodman, there is simply no way that Michael Jordan could have made that space to take the shot. Dennis Rodman was Game 6's unsung hero. So what does this great moment in sports history have to do with being a better leader in the workplace? Well, if this is one of the most iconic images in sports history, then surely this is one of the most iconic images in the business world. There are a lot of similarities between the careers of Steve Jobs and Michael Jordan. Both are heralded as MVP in their field. They're both widely acknowledged to have fundamentally changed the way the game is played. Both left their respective teams only to come back a few years later to make a championship run. And much like MJ, Steve Jobs couldn't have done any of this without a cast of supporting players to clear the lane for him to take his game-winning shots. One story in particular stands out as similar to the Rodman incident. Back in '98, while the Bulls were playing against the Jazz, Steve Jobs had just returned to a struggling Apple and taken over as CEO. His first success was the introduction of the iMac. He'd also just hired a young man named Tim Cook to help improve Apple's operational excellence and get products in the hands of customers faster than ever before. 6 months into joining, Cook had gotten Apple's stock inventory from 30 days down to just 6. That's an absolutely miraculous task that had a lot to do with the success of the iMac And that then paved the way for Apple's resurgence with the iPod, the iPhone, and then the iPad. So how did he do it? He bought up $100 million worth of freight space on transport aircraft. Sounds pretty crazy, right? But it's even crazier when you think that he made this investment months ahead of the product launch, before it had even been announced. This single move meant that not only were iMacs able to get to the customers who wanted it as demand surged post-product launch, but it also meant that there was precious little freight capacity left over in the market, meaning that Apple's competitors were unable to deliver on their products. It's a really bold move for someone so early in their career at a new company, but it epitomizes the spirit of the unsung hero who clears the lane so that the team superstar can take his own game-winning shot. Whenever we witness greatness in the workplace, it's usually the result of not just the brilliance of one individual, but also the unseen work of those around them who created the openings and opportunities for them to shine. In the field of leadership development, we've recently been hearing a lot about the concept of servant leadership, which flips the boss role from you all work for me to how can I serve you to do your best work? And this really aligns with one of my favorite pieces of advice, which is to hire the best people and then get out of their way. So here's the thing. It's pretty easy to spot the Michael Jordans on your team. They are the ones who are always doing high profile work, always getting the highest performance ratings, and deservedly always gaining recognition for the great work they do. Identifying the MJs doesn't make you a great leader. That part should be pretty obvious. The harder part is identifying your Dennis Rodmans and your Tim Cooks. Who are the people on your team or organization who clear the lane for the Jordans and pave the way for miracles to happen? If you're able to identify these unsung heroes and give them a bigger platform to do their thing, that's when your results begin to multiply. Good leaders find stars. Great leaders find unsung heroes. That all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually make it happen? Here are 3 lessons you're never likely to see in a leadership development course, but they really demonstrate how great leaders are able to identify and unlock the potential of their unsung heroes. The first lesson is, look for your Rodmans when they're not there. My wife works in sales at a tech company, and she told me a great story about a teammate who was her pricing expert. He was regularly added to client meeting invitations as an optional attendee, and most of the time he would show up. The one time he didn't attend the meeting, suddenly things got very difficult for the sales team. They weren't able to answer a bunch of questions as smoothly as usual, and they had to take away a lot of homework from the meeting to follow up on later. It was only then that the sales team realized how much more difficult these interactions were when the pricing person wasn't in the room. These types of people are the ones who don't get credit when the team closes a sale, but that doesn't mean they're not instrumental in setting the salesperson up to take the match-winning shot. As a leader, it might be worth doing a retrospective on the last 3 months worth of deals that didn't go right, for example. If there is a consistent absence of a particular person at times when things got tough, they might just be your Dennis Rodman hiding in plain sight. The second lesson is to look for the ones who have always been there. In every company, there are those few people who are just part of the furniture. They've been at the company for so long, no one even really remembers when they joined. Now, the truth with these people is they generally fall into one of 2 categories. Either they've just never been noticed enough to be recognized and moved up the ranks, or sometimes they're just terrible at their job and don't have anywhere else to go. When I worked at Deloitte, there was one director who had been with the firm for a long time. In fact, he'd been there for so long, he eventually found himself working for someone who had once reported to him. He took it all in his stride and was one of the most consistent performers. He'd just never put his hand up for more recognition. Eventually, a few of the leaders took notice of the work he was doing, and when they gave him the opportunity to step up and build his own practice, it turned out to be not only one of the most profitable areas of the business, but it also received stellar satisfaction rankings from the junior staff members who worked on his projects. All he needed was to be recognized and given a bigger platform to unlock the potential of those young stars within the firm. An interesting exercise could be to make a list of everyone who's been in the organization for 5 or more years. Then divide them into 2 lists, the dead end list and the unsung heroes. This second column could be a potential list of diamonds in the rough. They're worth a second look. The third and final lesson is to look for those who don't live down to their expectations. If you happen to work in legal or compliance, chances are most people, unfortunately in your business, see your team as the buzzkills, always ready to say no. But take a look at a company like Uber. They got ahead by hiring compliance people who allowed the business to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. They understood that the regulators in each country would always be playing catch up anyway. So they were okay with preemptively entering new markets, capturing market share, and then dealing with the ramifications of rectifying and coming into line with compliance requirements as and when they were needed. They were okay with breaking some eggs to make the omelette, rather than getting too obsessed with trying to maintain a clean sheet. The work that these types of people do might sometimes seem counterintuitive to their role. But what we can learn from Tim Cook is that although his job in operations was to reduce costs, he knew when the time was right to spend $100 million in order to save the company. He knew if he could help sales and marketing to achieve their growth targets, it would make it a lot easier to save money and streamline later. For now, just focus on growth rather than trying to be that guy who reduced costs on a sinking ship. In our modern work culture where everyone is trying to stand out and get ahead, it can be really easy to get caught up in the hype and focus only on the achievements of the superstars in your organization. I hope this story can serve to help us all take a moment to recognize the contributions of those unsung heroes out there in offices all over the world, clearing the lane so their Jordan-esque colleagues can take those game-winning shots. And for all of you basketball fans out there, I have one last question. Did Michael Jordan illegally push Brian Russell out of the way with his left hand before sinking that final shot? Or was it just momentum? Leave your answer in the comments below. I'll be watching keenly. Thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to support the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you like our content, check out our other videos and visit us at 5waystoinnovate.com to find out more about our mission to help 1,000 corporates reinvent themselves in order to build the business of tomorrow. I'm Ahmed Iqbal. Stay tuned and I'll see you soon.